if you had Kareem Hunt, Drake May, J.K. Dobbins on your team right now, you'd feel a lot better about where your season is projected. So today I'm bringing you 10 plus must-stash players that you need to have and be adding to the end of your bench to have some high-end upside. Starting it off with player number 1, it is going to be Trey Benson for the Arizona Cardinals. And Trey Benson last week got his first run, had a 19% snap share, 2.6 fantasy points, 5 attempts for 26 yards, and actually got on the field. Trey Benson paced the team in rushing on Sunday. Listen, it was not great for any of these guys in this offense, whether it was James Conner, whether it was Trey Benson, whether it was Amari DeMarcado. I think the exciting part with seeing Trey Benson get in the game is knowing that Trey Benson was a top 3 early 3rd round pick to the Arizona Cardinals. As much as we love a guy like James Conner has never been able to consistently stay healthy. We're talking about James Conner, and these are all the games over the last few years that he's been able to play. Now, it's great when he's out there, but when you're looking at the overall production, it has not been great in regards to him being able to stay healthy. So when we're looking at James Conner not being able to stay healthy, that's only going to benefit a guy like Trey Benson coming down the stretch. So Trey Benson is my number 1 must-stash player that you need to be having on Sleeper right now. Trey Benson is only 26% rostered. He's a perfect level stash if he is available in your league. Moving on to my second must-stash player, it is going to be Michael Wilson. Staying in the same offense, Michael Wilson, he's had his ups and he's had his downs. And the thing that we've seen with Michael Wilson, wide receiver 49 this season, right now he is rostered in only 30% of leagues, even though the last 2 weeks in PPR had 10 fantasy points and 12 fantasy points. I understand it's maybe not game-changing, game-breaking level potential. I just say you need to be going out and adding Michael Wilson, and especially because right now, a lot of people are a little bit worried heading into week 7. He's dealing with a little bit of an ankle issue. So this is the perfect time to be going and stashing a guy like Michael Wilson, high-end upside on an offense that has been struggling. We can be clear, Kyler Murray has been struggling as a fantasy football asset and as a quarterback, but I do think as we come into these next few weeks where we got the Chargers and Miami, 2 good matchups for Michael Wilson, we have to be very excited about it and have to be very excited about stashing some Michael Wilson. My third must-stash player in this video, it's going to be Emanuel Wilson for the Green Bay Packers. Emanuel Wilson is only owned and rostered in 14% of sleeper leagues. Last week had 8.3 fantasy points, had a 32% snap share, 7 attempts for 54 yards, had 2 targets, 1 reception. And we know that it's the Josh Jacobs show. We know that Emanuel Wilson's only coming in for a quick breather and or in garbage time, as we've seen this Packers offense take more and more steps to being elite. We got Jordan Love fully back from his injury. We got Jaden Reed. We got Christian Watson. We got Datavion Wicks. We got Romeo Doubs. We got Tucker Kraft. This offense, if for any reason, knock on wood, something were to happen to Josh Jacobs, Emanuel Wilson instantly becomes a very, very good week in and week out running back. And I'm not saying the war of attrition is the reason that's the only reason Emanuel Wilson's going to have any value. I mean, last week we saw him put up 8 fantasy points. In week 3, we saw him put up 16 fantasy points. I am just saying that we are only in the second quarter of fantasy football leagues, and there's already been a lot of injuries. So I want, if I'm in a deeper league spot and I have a spot, especially if I have Josh Jacobs, you 100% want to be stashing some Emanuel Wilson because he will be getting the ball if something were to happen to Josh Jacobs. And just like we saw Tyrone Tracy, who we thought had a ton of upside, come in and absolutely demolish in Devin Singletary's absence, I think we could be saying the same thing for an Emanuel Wilson. The next guy we're going to talk about is going to be a Donnie Mitchell, AD Mitchell for the Indianapolis Colts. And we talked about AD Mitchell last week in the video, and if we're being honest to ourselves, went out and only put up 2.9 fantasy points. So you're saying, Caleb, you're coming back to the well again. And I say yes. He had a 21% snap share, and in those 21% snap share, still had 4 targets, 2 receptions for 9 yards. It's not great. If we look at the overall depth chart, AD Mitchell sliding in as the wide receiver 4, very much so clearly behind the white Randy Moss in Alec Pierce. The thing that I do want to talk about with AD Mitchell, though, is he is good at the deep ball, and we have not seen E-Rich come back into play. And I know there's a lot of worry with Anthony Richardson coming back, like, oh my gosh, Caleb, it's going to kill MPJ. It's going to kill Josh Downs. It might only benefit a guy like Alec Pierce. I understand all of that. I still think AD Mitchell being 19% rostered is definitely worth a stash in a deeper level league. The next guy we're going to talk about as a stash, it is going to be Roshan Johnson for the Chicago Bears. And Roshan has had an interesting way of the season. There was one point in the season when we're talking like week 1 or week 2, when there was the thought like, hey, Roshan Johnson might have a shot to overtake DeAndre Swift. Well, DeAndre Swift has turned into an absolute league winning running back. But even these last 4 weeks, 10, 8, 14, and 5 fantasy points for Roshan Johnson. Yes, it is pretty much touchdown or bust for Roshan in these games, but he's hovering right around a 27 to 37% 60% snap share. So he is getting the opportunity. He's rostered in 26% of the leagues. He's overall RB44 right now. I think if you need some running back help, Roshan Johnson is a guy that I would be targeting as an option. Like I said, guys, sometimes you guys are like, Caleb, there's no way any of these guys should be rosterable. It's a stash video. I'm providing you guys some high-end upside at the end of the bench. If there's elite level guys on your waiver wire, like 100%, go get the elite level guys. But some of us play in super competitive leagues where we have to find the minute edges at the end of the bench, and that is my goal to provide with you in this video. The next guy we're going to be talking about is going to be Jaylen Powell as a mustache player, because we talked about Pop Douglas yesterday. Pop Douglas looks like a poor man's Antonio Brown, had the connection with Drake May, and we thought Jaylen Powell might get a little bit more run, but right now Jaylen Powell is the wide receiver 92 in fantasy football, only had one catch for 4 yards, 1.4 fantasy points in week 6, 2.3 fantasy points in week 5, 6 fantasy points in week 4. His highest scoring game is week 2 versus Seattle, where he had a 60% snap share. So the thing is, in week 5 versus Miami, he had 100% snap share, only had a 65% snap share with Houston, for the New England Patriots versus Houston. Really, for me, this comes down to the fact that they are rotating in these wide receivers, going with the hot hand. I think Jaylen Powell, as he gets more comfortable, is definitely a guy that in a deeper league, hear me out, in a deeper league, you might need to be considering a guy like a Jaylen Powell at the end of your bench as a stash option. Next guy we're going to talk about is Clyde EdwardsHelaire. And somebody in last week's video, when I brought up Clyde EdwardsHelaire returning from IR, said that dude sucks. Why would I ever want a guy like Clyde EdwardsHelaire? Well, Clyde EdwardsHelaire practiced in full on Wednesday's practice. We are probably still, week 10 is probably when Isaiah Pacheco is going to come back. So we have 3 weeks before now and Isaiah Pacheco coming back. And I think you have the real argument to be made that Clyde EdwardsHelaire can pass up Samaje Perine as the backup to Kareem Hunt, which all in all should be a very valuable role for a guy like CEH. So I understand the hesitation of adding a guy like a CEH, but especially if you're looking for a shot, if you're looking at a dart throw, as much as we thought Cam Akers was trash, came in for Joe Mixon, had a little bit of value, I think we could see Clyde EdwardsHelaire, if he were to get the opportunity, to instantly soar up in fantasy football value, and you might need to consider him. Now we're bringing you 2 more stashes. We told you we were bringing you 10 in this video. The next guy we're going to be talking about, it's going to be Kayshon Boutte for the New England Patriots, and we just talked about Polk. Kayshon last year, like I said, this is year 2 for my guy in the NFL. Last week had 14 fantasy points, 3 receptions, and caught a touchdown. The touchdown really helped promote him, but if we remember, Kayshon, when he was coming into this 2023 draft class, there was the talk that this dude would be a top 5, top 6 level wide receiver. Now he ran a crappy 40 time. There was a lot of attitude problems that were there. Guy falls very far in the draft. So I think Kayshon's definitely a guy going forward. We know he has the talent. It just never has been harassed in the right way. 14 fantasy points. I think if you're in a deeper league, you definitely have to be taking a shot on a guy like a Kayshon Boutte. And then last and final guy is going to be Jaylen Wright. We've talked about Jaylen Wright as a stash before. You have Raheem Mostert come back. We haven't seen since the bye, but did put up his most fantasy points in week 5 with Raheem Mostert out, 8.6 fantasy points in that game. I just continue to think that there's going to be injuries, whether it's to Devon, whether it's to Raheem. Plus, we have the light at the end of the tunnel with Tua coming back. Like I said, I ain't no doctor, so I don't understand how coming back from a concussion when you've had so many concussions is a good idea. Like I said, no one asked my opinion because I'm just some Joe talking on YouTube. I do think Jaylen Wright, he's only rostered in 20% of leagues, definitely worthy of a stash. So if you like fantasy football, if you like winning, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. On the way to 4,000 subscribers, answering every start sit question down below. If you haven't checked out these 2 videos, check out these 2 videos, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.